blue tit can be seen in pretty much any garden in Britain. Originally a woodland species, it has adapted well to gardens, particularly those with plenty of trees. The blue tit is a successful species whose population is increasing in many areas, perhaps due to its popularity among its human neighbours, who often provide it with food, water and shelter. Most people can recognise a blue tit easily, but it's hard for even experienced birders to tell the slightly brighter male from the female. These cheeky and colourful birds are usually the first species to arrive when a new feeder is put out, especially if it contains peanuts. In winter, garden-visiting tits rely heavily on food sources supplied by humans, gaining greatest benefits from fatty foods like nuts and seeds. Regular supply is important to blue tits, who quickly learn to return to a garden in which they have found food before. In hard weather, if food stops being put out, the birds can sometimes starve before they find an alternative. Watching blue tits in your garden, you may be struck by their acrobatic ability. They frequently hang upside down from a feeder, a technique they also use on leaves to look for caterpillars underneath. Blue tits explore everything in their search for food, using their sharp, stubby bills to comb the bark of trees in the hope of finding insects. Occasionally, they will even enter houses and tear off loose wallpaper, presumably for the same reason. To get a really good view of feeding blue tits, invest in a feeder that can be stuck onto the outside of a window. Once they've become accustomed to the new food source, these plucky birds are perfectly happy to feed in such close proximity to humans. As well as being the first birds to discover a new garden feeder, blue tits are also the readiest species to try out an artificial nest box. If you're going to try and tempt blue tits to use your garden, put up a box with a round hole very early in the year, as the blue tit is looking for a potential nest by March. The hole should have a diameter of 25 millimetres, 1 inch if you want to exclude great tits, but can be 29 millimetres, 1.14 inches across if you don't mind which species takes up residence. Any larger and the box may be colonised by sparrows. This archive footage gives a wonderfully close look at blue tits inside a nest box. The parents both help to make their brood comfortable with moss, hair, grass and wool. If you have pets which need grooming, leave the excess hair in your garden and it will soon end up in the nest box. The fledglings are ready to leave the nest after about 3 weeks, and after they leave the safety of the box, will often form a small flock while they look for their own food for the first time. A clutch of up to 16 eggs is not uncommon in areas with good food supplies, especially oak woods with lots of caterpillars for feeding the young. Productivity in such habitats is usually greater than in gardens, but garden breeders are compensated by a better survival rate of fledged young due to the food provided by humans. The blue tit has a reputation as an intelligent problem solver. The most famous example of its ingenuity in the search for food is the way that it learned to peck through cardboard and later foil milk bottle tops to get at the cream beneath. First recorded in Southampton in 1921, the habit spread across the country until it was widespread by the late 1940s. Often the blue tits learned what time the milkman would arrive and ensured that they were perched nearby waiting. In the gap between the milkman leaving and the people in the house taking the milk inside, the tits would swoop down and help themselves. Research proved that blue tits even learned the difference between the various colours of foil tops, discovering which ones concealed the full cream milk and ignoring the others. Since the 1980s, though, the tits have been thwarted by the decline in doorstep deliveries and the great swing to semi-skimmed milk. Healthier for humans, if not for the birds. It was not just that they preferred the cream. The blue tit's digestive system actually lacks the enzyme needed to break down the lactose in milk, but the densely fatty cream was both digestible and energy-rich. There's plenty that can be done to help and encourage this familiar but endlessly fascinating bird. Just by putting out food, water and a nest box, you can get an amazing insight into the life cycle of the blue tit and the pleasure of seeing a brood raised in your garden.